Hello, everyone. A few weeks ago, the most recent report of the Aging Working Group of the European Union was published with forecasts that each country member submits based on its own methodology for the next 50 years. One of the key findings, the European Union population is projected to decline from 447 million people in 2019 to 424 million in 2070. During this period, member states' population will age dramatically, given the dynamics in fertility, life expectancy, and migration. The median age would rise by 5 years over the next decades. And in Greece, the projections indicate that 1 in 3 persons will be at least 65 years old at the end of the projection period in 2070. So part of the discussion should be directed towards a pivotal question about how do we redesign older societies. And joining us from Massachusetts is Professor David Grabowski, Professor of Healthcare Policy at the Harvard Medical School. Professor, thank you for being with us today. Good morning from Athens.
Good morning, and thanks so much for having me on.
So let's start with the pandemic. We've actually had a crisis in aging long before it came, but don't you think it shed more light on the need to protect more efficiently the older chunks of society? We've seen many deaths having occurred among residents of long-term care facilities.
Yes, the pandemic was very much a crisis on top of a crisis. Greece, like the United States, had struggled in providing high-quality long-term care for many years. And so the pandemic magnified this issue and highlighted what a poor job we often do of protecting both individuals receiving long-term care services, but also their caregivers. We saw worldwide, hundreds of thousands of deaths, cases in long-term care facilities. And this was also incredibly hard on individuals working in these facilities, and also family members who couldn't get in to visit their loved ones. So this really highlighted what a crisis we have in long-term care, and really highlights just how much work we have to do here to fix the system such that we always have good quality care, but the next time we have something like this occur, we can actually protect long-term care residents and their caregivers.
Mm-hmm. So what are the types of investments a state should make now to demonstrate real change and care for older people?
I think there are 2 big areas. So the first area is we need to get individuals out of big long-term care facilities and get them services in the home and in the community. And some countries have done a much better job of this versus others. But individuals want services in their home, and we need to provide high-quality access to these services. Now, there's always going to be some individuals that require care in a long-term care facility. And many countries around the world, unfortunately, have huge institutional long-term care facilities. We need to reimagine what a long-term care facility looks like. And we need to move from these big 100, 120-bed facilities to smaller home models. I'm thinking about an 8 to 12 person long-term care facility that's much more home-like, that is resident directed. So the individual living there is really their home, and they choose when they get up, how they spend their time, what they eat every day. And then the staff that are working there are empowered, and we actually pay them a living wage, and we value the work that they're doing. A small long-term care facility model that's resident directed and staff empowered, I think that's the way to go. So once again, let's get as many individuals out of long-term care facilities as possible. And for those individuals that are always going to need long-term care facilities, let's make them as home-like as possible. And Christos, if I could just make one final point on this issue, all too often we hold up these 2 settings as opposing parts of a system. They need to be complementary. It can't be kind of home and community-based services versus nursing home services. We need to do both well because there's going to be individuals requiring both of these services. It's a false dichotomy to say it's home and community-based services or long-term care facility services. The right answer is let's reimagine both sets of services for aging adults.
Sure. Is there a country, Professor, a country model that we would probably need to look up to? A country, according to your research, that has done a good job in rebalancing long-term care spending? And would a universal long-term care benefit be appropriate?
So the first part of that, I think if I was Greece, I would look to the north. Northern European countries have done a really good job of setting up long-term care systems. So I'll use the Netherlands. I had the opportunity to visit there prior to the pandemic, and I visited a long-term care facility in the Netherlands. And I can say they're doing everything that I suggested. They've really invested heavily in home and community-based services. And when individuals need nursing home services, it's a high-quality model that's well-staffed. The staff are well-trained and well-paid. It's much more home-like, and the residents seemed happier there relative to many nursing homes I've been to here in the U.S. So there's countries like the Netherlands, Sweden, Switzerland that have really done a good job. To the second part of your question, it's not a coincidence that all of those countries have long-term care, universal long-term care benefits. They've really made major investments in these services. The U.S., from a public perspective, spends about 0.5% of our gross domestic product on long-term care services. These countries are spending 3-4% of their gross domestic product on long-term care. You get what you pay for, and these countries are getting much greater services, both in the home and when you need nursing home services, long-term care facility services. They're much better. They're what individuals want, and so I would point to those to countries in Northern Europe as a real model.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, Dr. Grabowski, professor at the Harvard Medical School, has studied the economics of aging for decades, and your work has been in the spotlight now more than ever. Thank you so much for your time and contribution to our program.
Thank you.